Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Achille, here with my co-host, Maddie B, talking youth sports. And the pre-show, go to southboundsports.com, and you can check it out. We have the full live show on Patreon. You can sign up there to watch the live show and hear some behind-the-scenes stuff we do before we go live. Talking a little bit, I said I was going to check the game for NHL. NHL keeps advertising that they're on ESPN and ESPN Plus, but I haven't found a playoff game that is available on ESPN Plus without having an ESPN subscription, which I think is bullshit. You can't advertise that the games are on ESPN Plus, sell ESPN Plus as a separate subscription, but when you log in, it's like, psych, gotta have the ESPN login, buddy. At that point, just delete the ESPN Plus from there. Why have that on your advertisement? It's annoying. But that's my thing. I try to watch. We talk about college, like football, and how they're going to be on different channels, and how it's going to be hard for Big Ten. I keep hearing people say like, "Oh yeah, Big Ten, it's going to suck for them when they don't know what channel their games are on," and the SECs are going to be like all on ESPN. And then I realized for the basketball, it's the same thing. Some games are on ABC, some games are on TNT. Right? Or, yeah, TNT.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the heck? How can I even watch a game when I don't even know what channel it's going to be on? And you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to figure it out for Big Ten football when they're all free? And I only get like 4 or 5 free channels, like main ones, that I can just hit up and down 5 times and see which one Michigan's going to be playing on? Like, give me a break. Some of the games are on ESPN, some are on ABC, and some are on TNT, it looks like. I'm clicking through the basketball. So, how am I supposed to know? So maybe that's not an argument against the XFL and stuff. We'll talk about the XFL playoffs in a little bit. I think that's the one thing where people are talking about, oh yeah, we get this and that. It's hard to know all these channels, but every single sport does it. Every single one. So the XFL, figure it out. Maybe would it be better if they were all on Fox? Absolutely. Would it help the league? Because some people don't even watch certain channels for whatever reason. Like they're stuck in a nursing home and they only watch the one channel. It's like, nah, we don't do ABC here, son. If it's on CBS, which used to be the SEC network, now that's done. That'll be Big Ten football, baby. And did we talk about the Michigan flip? They flipped Texas and Michigan, so it's at the big house like next year. So that Fox can broadcast it. Unless they sell it to another network and trade it for like a different game. But I think that they wanted Michigan and Texas on Fox. I don't know if that will be a big noon. Would be kind of weird, right? Because that should be a prime time game. When did Texas play Bama? Was that a noon?
Yeah.
I think it was early in the day, right?
Yeah, it was early day.
Maybe it was 3:30 at the latest. I can't remember, but that's my updates. Just random things for high tempo. You got anything?
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to Florida State softball coach Lonnie Alameda because she hit her 700th career win, and that's a pretty big milestone.
I forgot that softball was even playing right now. Because the tournament didn't start yet, right?
No, but they're playing really well again this year. I mean, they've won, like, since she's been their coach, they've won 8 ACC titles and won the national championship in 18. So expecting big things again this year.
Yeah, that's what I was looking through to see. It looks like the tournaments are coming up this week or next week. The conference tournaments, and that's when they usually kicks in. So, cool. I forgot, like, I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm off, because it's the football, I'm telling you. I watch XFL playoffs, I watch USFL stuff, and then I'm getting thrown, because I try to watch hockey, it's not really on TV, and I can try to watch basketball, and a lot of those are on TNT, and it's like, I'm not paying for cable, I just don't care anymore. If I can watch all the games for the NFL and college football, that's enough for me, I think. Maybe I'm getting too old. Maybe that's a sign of getting old. Because I hear these other guys talk sports on their podcast and they pretend like they watch all the stuff. Why do that? Like, you're not watching the games. Let's get into the draft, though. With some big-time stuff here. They took Bryce Young, number 1. Even after the, the leak saying that Will Levis was going to be taken number 1. And then he didn't even get taken to the second round, which I don't think was a big deal. A lot of people made it out that like he was a sure thing number 1 talent, but he wasn't even graded as a number 1 pick. So for him to fall, I don't think it's a sign of things moving towards like running quarterbacks or whatever. Because Richardson's not a running quarterback. Are you kidding me? He's like the prototypical big time quarterback with the big arm that's just inaccurate. Right? He's basically Trey Lance. Now, is it going to work out for him?
Well, there's a possibility he's looking to be shopped around right now.
After they just drafted him?
Yeah, because they have Purdy as their quarterback.
Oh, you're talking about what's his face? I was talking about Richardson. I was confused because the thing that came out is like, did you see like the breaking thing from like Jim Irsay or whoever the Colts owner is?
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, I thought we would be taking Will Levis with our pick, but instead we took Anthony Richardson. It's like, buddy, why? You could have still took. No one had Richardson coming top 4. Are you kidding me? They're like, that guy can't throw. He can't hit a target. Like Will Levis and him, I think were both coin flips of what guy are you going to get. I don't think either of them would have been. I don't think I would have picked either of them. I went on. I'm pretty sure I've been saying for weeks that the only quarterback I would take is Bryce Young. I'm shocked that they took 3 quarterbacks in the first 3 or 4 picks. I said, if you can't get Bryce Young, get Will Anderson. The Texans must have had buyer's remorse, Matt. Maybe they were listening to the show when they made their pick, and they thought, shit, we better trade for Will Anderson. Because otherwise, we're not going to hear the end of this. Right? If we get CJ Stroud, and he's a bust, we're screwed. Because we passed up Will Anderson. So they doubled down, and they got both. So now, unless both are a bust, they can kind of say like, well, we took Stroud first because we knew he was the guy if he works out. And if they both work out, then they're like, see, we got our guys, we got our future. But I'm looking at like what these other owners are saying. Like the Colts made 0 sense. Like if you wanted Will Levis, you would have drafted him. What are you talking about? No one had Anthony Richardson going number 1 or hell number 2. It was always a question of, do you take Bryce Young or CJ Stroud? And then how far does the other one fall? Which this year, not very far. So I was trying to think though, like next year's quarterback class, is there a big time quarterback? Quinn Ewers? That's probably it. I think he's draft eligible, right? Oh, we debated this last week, didn't we? Because he took that year at Ohio State. I don't know if that was an official year. Then he transferred to Texas for 2 years, right? So he should be able to be, or for 1 year. So he should be able to be drafted after his second Texas year, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But I don't know. After him, what do you do? Oh, Caleb Williams probably, huh? That's who I'm thinking of. Those would be the top 2 picks, I think. And is Caleb Williams even that much better?
I wouldn't even want to look at what the next round's draft is going to look like, because I feel like there's so much stuff that can happen over the course of between now and next year's draft that it doesn't even, I don't think that it even carries really any serious weight.
Oh, you can just say it, Matt. If Michigan and JJ win the national championship, JJ should be number 1.
You can't even say it with a straight face.
Oh, I'm going to let JJ hear it. Like, come on, buddy. You want to be the number 1 pick? Win the national championship. That's how Joe Burrow did it. Right? No one was picking Joe Burrow number 1. And you can come out, and that's legit. It could very well happen. They went undefeated last year. He throws the 2 pick sixes. How do you know he doesn't bounce back this year and make a run? I was thinking about it.
Well, maybe Levis is just going to have an outstanding career and be like your guy Aaron Rodgers, where he fell, and then they had I feel sorry for him because he's supposed to be drafted number 2.
Was my man Derrick Henry still there? He's at the point where I should start tweeting at him and say, "Hey, how you feeling this year, buddy? You're getting kind of old. Should I cut you?" I know you got me that fantasy championship last year. I need to do the same thing for Eckler. Eckler had a ton of carries. Is he going to be healthy? How's his body feeling? Wonder, you think he'll message me?
Maybe
we should invest for the show. We'll get a blue check. A better chance of us getting a response if we have a blue check, right? On Twitter, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, big time fantasy football advice guy here. You won me the championship last year. How you feeling? You going to be okay out there?" Because if a healthy Derrick Henry is out there, I feel like with the Titans, right? Isn't that where he went? That's a good situation. Which
I think that just shows that they have absolutely zero faith in Malik Willis getting it done.
Well, don't they still have Tannehill?
Yes.
Because Tannehill, they made him look good. Malik Willis, I still think was a good pick because you don't know.
Yeah.
I would have taken that pick 100 times. Everyone's like, "Yeah, awful pick." It's like, in hindsight, buddy, were you going to say that about CJ Stroud? I've been saying he's an awful pick. I was wondering the same thing about Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks. Has a Lincoln Riley quarterback even been good in the league? Because he didn't do Mahomes. Mahomes went to Texas Tech, right?
Yes.
So Lincoln's quarterbacks are who? Baker Mayfield, which I thought was good. He had a decent run, but it's not like something to write home about. Then he had what? Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray.
Same situation.
Caleb Williams.
Well, we don't know that for sure yet. He's not in the league. Who else? Is that it? Because I bring up the Ohio State thing. It's like, in the bazillion years the NFL's been around, they've had 0 successful quarterbacks, man. So if you take an Ohio State quarterback high, like the Texans did, you also better take Will Anderson because that way you can at least hedge your bets. With Lincoln Riley, it's like, all right, we're going to put a couple of system QBs in. No one says system QBs anymore for whatever reason, but it's absolutely a thing in college. If you're throwing to dudes that the scheme is that we're going to flood zones and give you guys that are wide open, and we're going to design our offense because we have a talent advantage at Oklahoma where our dudes are way better than the rest of the conference, and we still can't win, right? We're not going undefeated. They should very easily be going on Ohio State types runs, but they weren't.
But I almost feel like, in the defense of that, with some of these more wide open offenses, they're scoring points, but they end up losing these massive shootouts, and it ends up being like a 56-48 loss, where the defense couldn't get a stop to keep them in the games.
Because I don't think teams, for whatever reason, they go away from the bend but don't break. I've been saying it for years that, hey, I wish Michigan or someone would just go to a bend but don't break and have the talent. Because a lot of the teams that do run it, like Iowa, gets a lot of takeaways and stuff. And Michigan ran it to perfection for 2 years in a row against Ohio State and killed them. They go against TCU, which you should have used the same strategy, and they were like, nope, throw that out the window. Let's start doing 0 blitzes and all this shit. And then next thing you know, both teams are scoring in the bazillion points, right? And it's a shootout. And I saw the same thing in the XFL happen where, and we'll talk about this later, but where the one coach, they interviewed him, he's like, yeah, we're going to do a lot of crazy blitzes. That's what I said I was going to do. And it's like, why? I mean, it worked, but what are you doing? If your team's better, and yeah, you're getting away with it, but at some point, if you have the talent, like Oklahoma, whatever you're doing on offense, you're most likely going to score. All you have to do on defense is sit back and just play it safe. Hell, that's what Clemson did. The same thing I said about Ohio State quarterbacks and like their offensive guys coming in, like the wide receivers, if you're talented, you're talented, like, right? I think Ohio State has no problem getting guys in. But when you're a quarterback, it's hard to develop whenever your guys are just open all the time. It has to be, right? I mean, that has to be a real thing. You can't just be going to the NFL where your guys, guess what? They're not open. And it's like, we don't know why he's struggling. Same with like Bama QBs and stuff. It's like, this guy's a sure thing. Yeah, they might be good for a little bit, but it seems like once the league catches up with them, they're done. They're toast. And I don't even know what the hell I was going to say. Oh, so once you're there in the system, like in college, it seems like it's not even a system thing, because Florida, your boys right here, they had how many dudes drafted? 6 dudes drafted, right? They won like 6 games, right? How was the record? It wasn't good. So I don't know how you can have a top round quarterback, but you can't win anything. Going back to what I was saying about like Clemson, they weren't recruiting like gangbusters. They had big time defensive linemen, and an NFL scout came out and said, like, I'm not touching a lineman from Clemson forever. Like, they're going to be a bust, like, because they played at Clemson. Because ACC, probably their schools that they go against aren't as big. You get in with a great quarterback. They hit on 2 all-time QBs in college, right? And they got 2 national championships, right?
Yeah. All
because of the quarterback. You lose that quarterback, even if you're playing like the safe defense where we're just going to go ahead and be bigger than you in the ACC to go undefeated, it doesn't matter if your quarterback's not solid. But still, they're able to put up a massive record because they focus on a safe defense, and all Oklahoma has to do is the same exact thing and say, hey, we're confident in our offense. We can score as fast as we want, but like, let's just play safe on defense and let's go out there and do our thing. I think that's where like teams like Nebraska, people keep asking, like, are they back? And I saw Scott Frost play like, hey, it seemed like they weren't playing their game ever. They play Michigan, they match up, they're playing like a hard-nosed game against Michigan. They play Ohio State, they're trying to play up-tempo and do all these crazy things. And it's like, what's Nebraska supposed to be doing? Like, are you supposed to be just mimicking the other team and being a worse version of it? Because, like, that's what I saw Nebraska do all year long. And it's like, yeah, we're losing a lot of close games. It's like, yeah, because you're playing to the other team's style every game. It makes 0 sense. 0 sense. Like, how about you try to do something? It reminds me of like when Michigan State, they played Ohio State like 2 years ago or whatever. They had like 11 wins. And they come in and everyone's talking about like, damn, if Michigan State comes out here and beats Ohio State, they're going to be in the playoffs. And what happens? They decide to not run the ball when they had Kenneth Walker. Had like 5 touchdowns against Michigan, and they're like, we're going to give him 5 touches instead. And the ending score was like 40. It was like 40 something at halftime to nothing, or 28-0 at halftime or something like that. And I was just thinking, like, why? What were you thinking? You thought Ohio State has a bunch of great NFL dudes. I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to try to outpass them. No. Dumb. So that's where it's like, hey, Florida can't even win in the SEC with Anthony Richardson, right?
I like that during Florida's spring game that they were talking about Jordan Travis being the only real quarterback in the state of Florida.
Well, Florida's like, hey, I keep hearing all these things. It's like, yeah, Florida got all these guys drafted, and I look at the list, and they have the same amount drafted as Ohio State, Penn State, and Clemson, right? And Oregon. Well, I guess and Pitt and LSU. But like, Florida's the one team on that list. It's like, have they been winning recently? No. So what are they doing? And they're bringing in all these transfers. And that's the thing that would scare me. It's like, at some point, if you have a top quarterback, he has to win. Someone compared him to Ben Roethlisberger at Miami, Ohio. It's like, he's playing at Florida, buddy. There's talent on that team. Ben Roethlisberger had a great record at Miami, Ohio. He was winning. He almost beat Iowa that year, 2002 or whatever that was. And Iowa was like a top 5 team. So what are you doing? Florida's not doing that. I mean, they almost beat, Georgia maybe? And then it was all downhill from there. It's like, I don't even know. I don't know why. It's hit or miss with quarterbacks. I understand that. But at some point, you have to be able to win the games. And if you're not sure on accuracy or you're not sure on this or that, like, what are you doing? They compared him to Josh Allen because of his arm strength. And he's one of the most exciting players. I never thought we talked about how exciting Florida's offense was in the fall, Matt. Because we never did. So why would that be exciting to watch in the NFL? Maybe does he get injured? And I don't think so. This is his thing. Hey, he doesn't have good footwork. He also lacks touch on some shorter throws and misses too many layups. Yeah, that's the guy I want to draft number 4.
Especially in a league that really seems to recently take a shining to dink and dunk lower level passes. So it's not like he went to the Raiders where it's like everybody go deep.
All he has to do with the Colts, it's like I don't even know what their offense is supposed to be this year. It's like they have no direction as a franchise. They'll be drafting top 5 again next year, probably being like, yeah, we don't know what the heck we're doing. And if Will Levis comes out and he plays well, then I think people are going to look back and say, like, that's one of the dumbest drafts I've ever seen. And like I said, I just don't understand why you don't trade back. I don't think anyone else was drafting a QB, right? Yeah, no one else drafted a QB until the second round. So why? They have to see that, and then they talk about Will Levis. Like, buddy, just trade down to 15 or 20, and then see what you're going to get. Or draft a defensive guy that's up there, or even Paris Johnson from Ohio State. It's like, all right, let's get a guy that's good. Or heck, if you're going to take a chance on a guy, just take Robinson from Texas. I'm not sure how that's going to be. I'm kind of surprised that everyone talked about how he's like the greatest running back, and people were like, oh yeah, he's the greatest pure football player, when like he wasn't Saquon Barkley. I talked about it last week. So everyone's saying like, oh, he's Saquon Barkley. His mixtape shows why he's college ready. And yeah, he made a couple guys miss, but it wasn't like Saquon Barkley was taking over games. Robinson never did that. And maybe that's why I'm like low on some of these other guys. It's like, you play at Texas, buddy. You're playing in the Big 12. You're more talent. Your team's more talented than every other team you play, except for Oklahoma, maybe, right? Put up video game numbers. Like, I'm not even joking, Matt. I'm not even joking. Like, what am I supposed to be impressed with that pick, and like how great he was because he had a good combine? Everyone's talking about like how running backs don't get taken anymore. But it's like, all right, well, what did Robinson do? He wasn't even in the Heisman combo, right? I'm looking at the stats here to see, is he even anywhere near the top? He's 31st overall in yards per carry, which isn't bad, right? He was 6th in total yards, so not too bad there. Touchdowns, he was 5th. So he's like top 5 in stats, right? But even then, there are other guys that are like putting together ridiculous things. I think of like Abraham from Minnesota, and I think he got hurt later in the year. But like that was the guy I remember taking over and being like, hey, that guy's pretty good. And then I remember Minnesota has like Marion Barber and guys like that, and so maybe he could be good, right? You're playing at Minnesota. Your team's not that good. So like you're playing at Texas. Why are you behind all these other guys in like yards per carry? There's not even anything out there. I think the one thing that stands out to me is Michigan's Donovan Edwards played with a broken hand and averaged 7.1 yards a carry, which is more than what Bijan Robinson had. And I know that Donovan Edwards didn't play like the full year because he had Blake Corum or whatever, but it was just unbelievable. Like that, if you're looking at guys like that and how guys also have like the other things, the other one would be Zach Charbonnet, who played at Michigan at one time. He went to UCLA. He also averaged 7 yards a carry. He was available in the later rounds. I don't even know when he got drafted. Donovan Edwards couldn't come out. So like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. If Michigan has another great year and he's awesome, he's also going to be splitting carries with Corum again, so I don't know. But in terms of like just running backs and guys that are available, Charbonnet's another top guy. I don't think he was taken until like day 2 or 3, right? I'm trying to see. I wish it would let me just search by name on here. But that's my recap. Some teams I don't understand why they went certain directions and where they're going to go. Like, what's the plan? Like, the Raiders. Like, what's your plan with your franchise? Like, we don't know.
And I think that's probably accurate. I don't think they do know.
And like the Eagles, they're like, if you played at Georgia, we're going to draft you, buddy. I feel like all their picks are from Georgia. I called the one I told you, Jalen Carter. I was watching the draft. People probably think I'm like a genius. I'm like, well, here comes the Eagles. They're going to draft Jalen Carter. And everyone's like, why? Why is he drafted? I'm like, why wouldn't they draft him? He should have been like the top 5 pick. He has off the field issues. The Eagles have no problems with that. If he would have been the Bengals, I'd have predicted the same thing, Matt. I'm surprised the Raiders didn't take him, but the Raiders aren't known for making good decisions, right? So it's like...
They're not.
So I'm like, all right, Carter's easily going to be taken. And of course they called it. He's like crying and all this stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever. What was the other guy that I want? Oh, wait, hold on. So I had the stats up first. So Alabama and Georgia both had 10 players taken. Then Michigan had 9 and TCU had 8. I already talked about Ohio State had 6 taken. Ohio State, do you think it's a fluke, Matt? Or do you think they're on the downhill swing post-Urban?
I would say that they're probably downward swing. I mean, they did have a little bit of a run, and I think you have those the highs and lows. I think like it comes and goes because I think you're able to pull those recruits for a while, and then everyone else is just chirping to knock you off. So I feel like eventually you run to that point where it's not sustainable. And I think even you look at Alabama, and I feel like they're still the team that can pretty much handpick who they're taking out of each class, and they're still not continuing to be that same dominant team that they were a couple years ago.
So going back 3 years, which is why I bring this up, because we talk about like how Michigan's been pretty good, and I've been excited about it. 2000, LSU won the Natty the year before. They had 14 guys drafted. Michigan and Ohio State both had 10. Alabama 9. Those are the top 4. 2001, Alabama has 10. Ohio State has 10. Georgia, Notre Dame have 9, and then Michigan has 8. So I feel like with this year then coming in with Michigan having 9 and Georgia and Alabama having 10, I feel like the teams that are consistently up there, right, 9, 8, 9, 10, are the teams that hopefully continue to make the playoffs. It seems like an outlier because Michigan 2020 was not good, right? Were we like 2-4? in the COVID year, right?
Yeah.
So to have like 10 dudes drafted is almost insanity that year. Because like how many teams are that bad and they're like, you know what though? We do like your guys. Maybe it wasn't the team. Because I keep hearing people say, asterisks, Ohio State didn't play Michigan that year. And it's like, maybe it was the COVID stuff for real? Like none of the guys got reps. Michigan was a really young team. No one had reps because they weren't allowed to practice in person. Maybe Ohio State just got lucky. Because that could be 3 losses in a row. The last 2 years weren't even close with Ryan Day as coach. So you can't say that with a full year that Ohio State would have easily penciled in a win there. They had Michigan had 10 dudes drafted, same as Ohio State. So, and maybe a lot of the higher rounds, I did see a thing where people were trying to like average up like the high picks and the number of rounds you're taking, kind of like a what the heck, like the Directors Cup or something, where you're taking teams that have players that are taken high, like Northwestern, who didn't even win a game in the United States. Didn't they win in Ireland? Because like when you think of Irish schools, you think Northwestern, Florida State, things like that, right? You're like, damn. So I'm like, what the heck? They have like 1 or 2 guys drafted in the first round, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, how are you that bad? The rest of the conference is so bad with talent that it doesn't even matter. I say the same thing with like the Big 12. People are like, well, the Big 12, some of those other teams that are good. Iowa State had never had a guy drafted in the first round until this year. They're not good. They're not good. They might have had 1 or 2 spike years, but that's not a good program. I don't care. Like Matt Campbell, and there's nothing like harsh on him. Like maybe people were thinking he's going to come to Michigan. I'm not like, I don't give a shit. If he comes there, I'd kind of be disappointed. And unless he does a Gene Chizik. Gene Chizik is the most decorated Iowa State coach of all time, right? Or did Pop Warner coach there? Or Heisman. One of the guys. I think they had one other like original coach, right? But Gene Chizik was there, and they gave him coins to commemorate his like 6 and 7 year or something like that, which is insane. That's what I think of when I think of Iowa State and how much of a joke their program is. And people saying that there's a chance they might join the Big Ten. That would never happen. And if it is, they just want another body bag out west. That would be USC saying, yeah, we want them. And I don't ever see them wanting them. Right? Same colors, basically. Why would USC want them to be a team they beat up on? Doesn't help with recruiting. Unless they need linemen. I don't know. But I bring up these lists, Matt, and I say like, hey, Michigan's high. I'm not just pointing them out, but it's the same teams like that I'm saying that have been in the playoffs, winning their conference. But I noticed your boys, Florida, 2020, they had 7. 2021, where did my list go? Florida had 8. Then this year they dropped down to 6 like Ohio State. Do you think they're having a fall off? Because it has to be disappointment, right?
There seems to be a lot of turnover, and I could only hope that they just continue to slide and face a valley of despair, because Florida State's going to be the team that for the near future is going to be in the driver's seat now to control Florida. And I think they have to, if they really want to capitalize on this, both Florida and Miami are down. You got to just absolutely maul them and put every flyer and poster and everything just showing how much better you are, and just beat them in every aspect of this arms race to keep the recruits coming. Because I think like they even posted that, they're trying to think of, they said,
all right, well, hold on a sec, because I don't think I got you. I think something went crazy. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can get you on here. I don't know what happened. Maybe my mic is going crazy, which would be a bummer. All right, so it looks like it's on there. Go ahead and say something now.
Check.
All right. Well, who knows what happened? I don't know what the hell happened to the audio. Hopefully it's good now. It probably sounds worse on my end because I think I think my mic went out is what happened. I don't know if it's because of the cable. I did get a new cable, so maybe I'll have to try the new cable. Maybe I have the wrong old one, but who knows where we were. We were talking about how bad Florida is. And maybe Tim Tebow had God curse us, Matt, and take the show down. Because that's like the only thing I can think of, right?
Well, that is really logical.
Yeah, because Tim Tebow, you know how...
Florida State was saying their big rivals this year are LSU and Clemson. Now that the ACC doesn't have their divisions, they're like, we have Florida and Miami, but they're not really rivals right now.
I don't like the no division thing. Because to me, it's kind of dumb. Why have those other schools? Right? You're going to be mad at the scheduling. Like, I'm going to be mad if Michigan ends up playing USC, Penn State, and Ohio State, but they lose out to Northwestern because they played none of them. Right? Because if you have 16 teams in the conference and you luck out and play none of the big four, what's stopping you from being the guy, right? Like, that's why people were like, yeah, maybe let Maryland get in. And they're already complaining. Like, I saw a lot of Ohio State people complaining that they didn't get their second chance at Michigan last year. And you would have saw how close it would have been the second time around, like how they played against Georgia. And it's like, what did you do to deserve a second chance, guys? You were at home. You lost by 20 points. Like, they won absolutely nothing last year. Ohio State did. They didn't win the Big Ten. They didn't win the Big Ten East because Michigan went undefeated, so they can't even claim a tie. They didn't win a bowl game or playoff game. I think that's the benefit of having the playoff game, right? Where, yeah, if they wouldn't have made it, they probably would have won the Rose Bowl or whatever the hell they went to. And so they could have said, like, yeah, we got really unlucky against Michigan. We really showed what we were in the Rose Bowl. Too bad we never got to play them again. And it's like, yeah, we almost beat Georgia. If only we had a good kicker that was drafted in the third round, right? Niners took Michigan's kicker in the third round. And one of the quotes I saw by one of their guys was, we were afraid he was going to get taken higher. And listen, I like Jake Moody. I thought he was solid at Michigan. But he wasn't as automatic as what people said. He was like automatic under 40 or 50 yards. I feel like for the NFL, you have to be automatic a little bit further out. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't like being negative against Michigan guys. But there were times, especially earlier in the career, where he really didn't start to be more accurate until Michigan started to get better. And when Michigan gets better, the field goals are closer. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's a correlation there where, hey, maybe Michigan's not kicking 50-yard field goals anymore because the running backs are able to get extra yards, and now they're kicking it from the 20 instead of the 40-yard line. And, oh, what do you know? He's making 40 in a row. It's like, yeah, we're closer, guy. So maybe someone could do that, but the Niners were like, hey, we're going to get him. And I did notice that I made fun of Georgia, if my mic was still on. Georgia drafting all those, or Philadelphia drafting all the Georgia guys, right? Michigan guys were drafted in pairs, pretty much. Like, Niners got a couple. Where else did the other ones go? Cincinnati, somewhere else. It's like, wonder why. Like, I wonder why certain teams had, like, where they're like, yeah, we really like that school. Like, of course, Philadelphia, maybe they're the laziest NFL team where they're like, yeah, we saw them in the Natty. We'll take them. That's all the scouting we did. We don't know.
That does seem like a valid plan, though.
Well, I'm not saying it's not, like, because, like, if you're going to, like, you brought up Alabama being solid, it's like, yeah, no shit, they've been solid for so many years, and that's my point. That's my point the entire time of everyone saying, like, Nick Saban's great. He's had top talent every year. Is he great? Like, what Kirby Smart's doing, if he wins, how many did Nick Saban win? Right? So how old is Kirby Smart? Let's do a little bit of research. Kirby Smart is, oh my God, what the heck? I hate how the search engines change everything up. Used to have his age right at the top. Now it just tells me when he was born. Like I'm going to do some math in my head. So he's 47, right? Nick Saban is, let's see. Now I have to do some research here. Try to calculate some things. He's 71. Okay? So his championships, he has 7. At his age, or at Kirby Smart's age, Kirby Smart's already ahead of him. Right? Kirby Smart has 2. Nick Saban would have been close. But he had 1. He didn't win his second one until Alabama. He won the LSU one in 2003. Right? So then he won 6 at Bama. Kirby Smart already has 2. He's already recruiting the best talent. Right? I would say, does that make him a great coach? No. But I think that it could make him in a great position to pass up Nick Saban. Because if he keeps coaching at Georgia, and let's say he has a shorter career, because remember Saban went to the NFL. If Kirby Smart wins 4 or 5 championships in the next 5 years, and then he's I'm going to bounce to the NFL, and he's good in the NFL, I would say he's better than Saban. Saban, didn't he have a losing record in the NFL?
Yeah, he was with the Dolphins.
Yeah, so it's they have made a lot of excuses for him, he didn't get Drew Brees, he didn't get this. It's a lot of coaches win without Drew Brees. It's not like Drew Brees has 8 Super Bowls. It's not like I didn't get Tom Brady. Drew Brees was good, but he's not going to be a guy that people bring up all the time, right? He's not a legendary quarterback. 1 Super Bowl does not make you a legendary quarterback. His stats will be broken. Tom Brady played forever, so Tom Brady is already ahead of Drew Brees pretty much in everything, right? So
I would say probably.
So it's not like people are going to be yeah, because remember the thing with Marino is he had the records. He just didn't have the Super Bowl, so people would bring it up and be yeah, but Marino has that record, it'll never be broken. Now it's well, Tom Brady he has the records. Oh, he also has Super Bowls. Oh. People bring up Aaron Rodgers, it's Aaron Rodgers has nothing. He has 1 Super Bowl. He's basically Drew Brees. So
the most obscure treatments.
Yeah, he's the guy that he comes to the Jets. Jets are high on him. I told you I was pumped when the Packers got rid of him. And I said I have 0 chance of winning the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe I'm wrong, and the Jets will come out on fire, and you said that they have a good team, so maybe you're right. And I'll be wrong. We'll find out. If they even come out and win the division, I wouldn't be surprised. But you got to win in the playoffs. Aaron hasn't won in the playoffs. New York's going to find out. They're going to see him turtle. Maybe it's not Lambeau Field, so maybe he will be good. But heck, they played on the road and stuff too for how many years? He couldn't get it done. Same with Drew Brees. There's always something fishy happened. Oh yeah, something fishy happened and the Saints lost again. It's something fishy happened. Aaron Rodgers is blame it on the special teams. Not on the quarterback only getting 1 touchdown. Right? Tom Brady had no trouble. Even when his team wasn't playing well and the defense was holding things up. He would always hang around. And even when they were getting killed by the Falcons, he's you know what? I'm not making another mistake. I'm winning this game. Everyone else, it seems well, I already got the excuse, so I don't have to try that hard. But that's my thing. So, going back to Kirby Smart, I don't know if he's going to be able to get the same accolades as Nick Saban, but I think absolutely, if he wins 7, I think you got to put him ahead of Nick Saban. Depends if he goes to the NFL and stuff. We'll find out. Right? Maybe he'll fall off the map. That's happened to other guys before. Les Miles, people were talking about him and Saban having battles, and it never really happened. With NILs now, I don't think Georgia's going to be able to stay on top. I just don't. They're not one of the big spending brands, right? So maybe they will be. Maybe this 2-championship run is going to like elevate them higher. Clemson wasn't one of the schools that's going to pay big, and we're already seeing the effects of that. They're falling off, lose their coordinators. Now they don't kind of have an identity. Their quarterback's going to Oregon State or whatever, Uiagalelei. Florida State's coming back. If Florida State doesn't capitalize and win the conference, I think that's when you're going to have problems, Matt. It's kind of like when Michigan turned the corner, right? Urban's gone. Michigan came out, Ohio State beat them with Don Brown. They get rid of Don Brown and say, we're going to go bend but don't break after the COVID year. They had to win the Big Ten. They had to beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten. You can't just beat Ohio State and not win the conference, right? So they got it done, and now everything's flipped. Florida State can do it right now. They have to do it. Clemson's still having more NFL success, but like you told me, and like I said, even like just because they didn't have guys drafted this year, they should have a higher class next year, or guys that are older, like a more of a senior class. Like look at TCU, they had 8 guys drafted. Heck, out of the top 5, Alabama was the only one that didn't make the playoffs. So now's your chance. Put it together and get it done. That's my NFL thing. I really don't have too many other guys that stood out. I don't know. I thought the draft was kind of bland this year. I did think it was a crap move by, who was it? Was it Curb Street or someone? They talked about every time someone was taken, they would say like, oh yeah, there's a guy, look at them cheering. They have no idea who that guy is. It's like, who cares? Like, why do you keep bringing that up? Because like their family's watching the game. So of course, like if I'm watching and my cousin gets drafted or something, and the announcer's laughing like, yeah, people don't know who that loser is, basically. Why have that?
Yeah.
Like, who's that for? Like, I know you're trying to make a joke, but like, I don't understand. Like, they make fun of Desmond because he makes jokes about Ohio State and CJ Stroud, and everyone's like, oh, that's ridiculous. Why would he's embarrassing himself making jokes like that. Herbstreit makes jokes about people being nobodies, everybody. And people are just like, like it's awkward. Right? But like, who cares? Like, I went to Boston College, you're like, yeah, no one knows who that guy is. It's like, why say that though? Like, your job's supposed to be pumping the players up, not making jokes about them being nobodies. I thought it was weird. He said it multiple times, and it stood out to me because I was like, "What are you doing?" Anything you want to talk about the NFL draft? I know our thing got kind of messed up.
I kind of like the way the two of the picks were showed with Joey Porter Jr. and the running back for Dallas, where they had. Like in Joey Porter Jr.'s case, like he grew up within the organization with his dad, senior, playing for the Steelers, and like as the draft was starting on day 2, they kept saying, "Oh, Pittsburgh has been fielding all these potential offers for that pick," and I looked at my wife. I said, "There's no way they're trading right now. They're gonna stay there and draft Joey Porter Jr. because look at how smug they are sitting in the room. Like everybody knew that was where they were going."
I thought it was funny that someone had a shirt that said he got shot in Denver, his dad. Like he didn't want him to go there. That's the only thing that stood out to me. Do you think the NFL, like some of that stuff, is kind of just rigged for storylines?
I don't think.
Oh, I 100% think. Did you see like the Schefter stuff with the Redskins come out where like they asked for advice? You don't think there's a gentleman's agreement where the NFL is kind of like silently saying, "Hey, it'll be good for ratings if we have a legacy guy on our team and we're drafting where he should be picked." you don't think the other teams are going to say, like, okay. Right? Like, if J.J. Watt has a son and he just randomly gets picked by the Cardinals, I'd be like, okay. Or Texans. Where was he better? Texans?
Texans.
So, like, if he just randomly got picked by the Texans, I'd be like, okay. Or, like, if McNabb had a son and, like, he went to the Cowboys instead. Like, yeah, right.
Like the real Donovan McNabb and not like the one from the Toys City, Philadelphia.
I know, that guy. He's also Don Cheadle. Yeah, that's why I was thinking. Like, I was just thinking of like big time guys tied to City, and since I've been talking so much Eagles this week, because Jalen Hurts gets paid like crazy, and a year ago no one was even talking about him, right? So I don't know. Same with like Iowa guys, Iowa tight ends being drafted by the Lions. Why? Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't get it. Let me see. I think I had one more thing. Oh, I did have another comment about Nick Saban being so tiny. Because who was that? Christian Ponder's wife? What's her name? Sam Ponder?
Uh-huh.
What's her real name? Was it Samantha Smith?
No.
I don't know then. I was thinking of someone else. That's why I always get confused. Because a lot of times they don't take the husband's name or whatever if they're in media. So maybe that's not who I was thinking it was. But Nick Saban looked like a tiny manlet beside her. And I thought maybe that's why he's so angry. Because, like, Robert Griffin...
It was Sam Steele.
Oh, Sam Steele, that's right. So, Robert Griffin's like a regular-sized man. He's over 6 foot tall, you know. I'd probably size up next to him. Nick Saban, like, looks like a little boy beside him. So I had a comment on that. Your boy Lamar Jackson. Did that ruin your draft night? I should have opened as a joke with that. I sent it to you. I forgot. He worked his own deal. His mommy made that deal. Did you see that? You kept saying about how he didn't have an agent. His mom made the deal.
But none of the details of it have been released, so how much of that was guaranteed?
I think I texted you that, didn't I? 185 in guaranteed money.
So he came down from what he was asking, because he wanted fully guaranteed and bells and whistles and everything else.
Well, I think that's going to happen. What was Hurts' guaranteed? 179. So basically, he got a little bit more guaranteed than what Hurts had to make him the new highest paid, right? I think that's how it would have went. Yeah,
I mean, good on him that he knew his worth and was able to take advantage of that. I know there's so many NFL players that you see when their careers are done that they didn't maximize their earning potential when they were playing, and that was just I didn't want to see where he ended up being another one of those stories where, oh, he was a good player for a time, but you know now there's a GoFundMe to try to help him pay for whatever medical expenses because he set up like it's like the setup of a bad 30 for 30, but.
Well, talking about... Go ahead.
Well, it's just good to see that he got it taken care of.
Well, I'm glad you don't have any animosity towards him. I figured seeing that big deal would ruin your night. Speaking of players having their nights ruined, I think it was Jalen Carter made a gigantic mistake because it looked like he was sitting next to someone, like some girl wearing a wedding dress, but it turned out to be his mom. And I thought, like, what kind of dude would throw their future away getting married right before the draft? Like, at least wait and get your worth, right? And then not get married right before means, like, that she would be entitled to half of that. Bro, get your stuff in order. Get a prenup. What are you doing? I saw that. I was like, bro needs me to send him a DM and get him straightened out. But then it was like, that's his mom. And I thought, who wears their wedding dress to their son getting drafted? It didn't make any sense. Like, his ESPN was supposed to do the NFL. I don't know which one you watch. You watch ESPN or ABC?
I think ESPN.
Because ABC had the Herb Street and Desmond, like they did the College Game Day. And so a lot of them were basically feel-good stories like they do on Game Day, where like one guy was, or one lady, I can't remember if it was a guy or a girl, like the mom or dad, the entire time they like praised God, and the reporter just stood there like shocked. Like, oh my God, like I can't believe we're airing this God talk on this show. And I was like, this is so weird. And then some of the moms were making it all about them and all the sacrifices they had to do to get their son to where he is. And I'm like, wait, what did, like, were you working out with him? I need to see some documentation, because that way I think other parents would want to know, like, how did you motivate your son? Like, you're giving yourself all this credit, right? Like, how do you get that to that level? That's what inquiring minds want to know. But I think that's all I had for the draft. You have anything else?
No.
Let's see. XFL playoffs. This will probably be quick, because now I'm going to have to mess around with the recording of this show. XFL playoffs. I did watch both games. I was a little confused because I thought it was Friday, Saturday. And then it ended up being Saturday and Sunday, which I thought would have been a good move. I have two TVs, right? I always talk about my setup, where it would have been great to have the NFL draft on one TV for Friday night and then the XFL game on the other TV. I understand what they were doing. They didn't want to have any competing football on, so they did it right after the draft on Saturday and then on Sunday afternoon, which I think turned out fine. I didn't see any ratings come out yet. I probably missed them. They probably were published today. But the big upset, Big Game Bob, came out and beat your boys from Houston. And I liked how they had him mic'd up at the end, because Bob came out and he's like, I don't know how we beat you guys. Third time's a charm. Like, he's like obviously goofing around and having a fun time out there. And I thought that was cool. Because they talk about, like, I think their quarterback was Perez for Arlington, and how he's been like doing all kind of different stuff, and some of the times he's like, I don't even know what the hell I'm looking at. So I'm like, laughing, because like, yeah, some of the players you think like, yeah, what are you doing out there? And they really, sometimes you don't know, because it's all changing up. But
he was with the New York team the last go around. They
traded him, I think. That's what it kind of made it seem like. They traded him, and he wasn't expected to be the starter anymore. But he worked his way up, and everyone was talking about how, oh, you have an 8-team league. How do you have, like, the divisions? But like I said earlier in the show, divisions make sense. Getting rid of them in college, I think, is going to be a mistake, because now you can't elevate other teams. The Big Ten East, yeah, it's a gauntlet. But if Penn State can't beat Ohio State and Michigan, why should the Big Ten care if they're in the playoffs? Right, Matt? For how many years Michigan struggled beating Ohio State? They flipped around with Penn State. Finally beat them both. They should be in the playoffs. They would have been like getting a bye in the 12-team playoffs. Heck, there would have been years where Penn State wins 10 games, 11 games, or I guess it would have been 10, and makes the playoffs in like a 12-team format. But now you're lumping them in where they're going to be eliminating teams like Wisconsin and Nebraska and, hell, even USC now and UCLA. You think UCLA and USC are going to be able to get the top recruits to come play for them when they have to fly all the way across the country? And their games aren't going to be as good. You can only play Ohio State and Michigan so many times, right? And if USC is getting Notre Dame, it's not like USC sells out. So are people going to be really excited about them playing Illinois, Northwestern, Indiana, Purdue? I don't really see how they're going to stay as elevated, kind of like Nebraska did. I think it's going to be something where, yeah, they're coming in, they're going to be good. Though, don't get me wrong. But if you get rid of divisions, there's nothing in the past 10 years that makes me think that USC is going to come in and start winning the Big Ten. I would be shocked if it happened. Shocked. Divisions would have been the best thing for them because they would have been in a division that they could win. And with the way the 12-team playoff is set up, an 11-2 USC that lost to Michigan or Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game most likely makes the playoffs anyway. Now, an 11-2 USC, or I guess it'd be like a 10-2 USC that doesn't even make the Big Ten title game. Do they get in over a 10-2 Penn State or a Michigan State? Like, I don't know. It's not like before where they're like, yep, we got to put a team in from the Pac-12. It's like, now we already got 2 teams. We already got Ohio State and Michigan. That's good enough. Like this past year, right? They put Ohio State in instead of USC because USC didn't win the Pac-12. Very easily could have been USC. They're doing like 3-game triple header on New Year's. No one cares about that. Is that part of the playoffs? No. Then no one cares. Put all the playoffs on New Year's Day. That's what I want with this format, Matt. XFL playoffs, I don't care if a team has a losing record. That was an actual rivalry playoff game in terms of the XFL. You had a team from Houston and a team from Arlington, 2 teams from the same state playing. DC beat up on who? Seattle? No one cared about that game. DC should have been playing Philadelphia or New York or something. Boston. Not Seattle. I'm glad they whooped up on Seattle. Screw Seattle. They couldn't even keep an NBA team. So now my boys got to take on Big Game Bob, and it could be a snoozer. DC looks legit. They're blitzing all over the place. They're the team that I said about blitzing earlier, Matt. Like, they made Seattle look like little kids out there. Just getting in their face, causing all this stuff. I almost texted you because DC threw 2 picks, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to end for me just like Michigan did, where the better team's just turning the ball over for no reason. But then they still pounded them, so it didn't matter. Now I get to see. I hate the week off, though. There's a good chance I forget about the XFL championship game because I'm not going to see ads for it. And that's my final thing. So you got anything else for the XFL? Anything you want to talk about?
Well, I did see weather was affecting the Seattle game. I think that just goes to show, like, the teams that can establish the ground game. DC had a solid ground game. It amazed me more that Arlington with Stoops got away from the air raid and had more of a conventional style offense. The second go around as the head coach.
I think it just fits the personnel. The XFL doesn't have like their pick of talent, right? So it seems like
to a certain level, I think you have to.
It almost seemed like they're kind of running more West Coast stuff, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's kind of what Perez seems like he can do.
Well, you had with Seattle and Houston, they're both air raid guys because June Jones was right up there with Mouse Davis running the shoot, and when he was with the Roughnecks the last go around, the Roughnecks' current offensive coordinator AJ Smith was on staff as the wide receivers coach. So they were still very much run and shoot.
Yeah, that's where I think with the air raid stuff, the teams that lost, like Seattle, just too pressured, couldn't get anything off.
Yeah.
So I just think at that point you have to make adjustments, and they're just not able to make adjustments.
Well, that was crazy because I felt like of any of the teams, Seattle had the most players that were recognizable. Like they had Josh Gordon. They went and got Philip Lindsay, who was with the Broncos. DiNucci was at Pitt and then transferred out to James Madison. Like there was more players on that roster that were recognizable people than I felt like there were for some of the other teams.
Yeah, DiNucci was there. I'm glad you brought up Gordon because that dude had so many drops. It was unbelievable. Like, I'm not even joking. The first series, I think, he had 2 drops, and then he had 1 the next one. He had like 3 or 4 drops the first couple of series. And I thought, this game's over. You're getting the guy the ball in the flat, and he can't even catch it. And I thought that he's never making it back to the NFL. Sad it is. This could be his second chance or whatever. But to me, that's what did it. Watching that happen.
Yeah.
All right. You got anything for the final bell?
No.
All right, I'll wrap up the show real quick. I did notice that Michigan has the number 1 recruiting class overall, so they can stop the count, Matt.
Well, they didn't adjust yet. Can't have them up, so let's knock a couple guys down, a couple ratings, and
now, Matt, just stop the count right now. It's over. Stop it, and then we'll know that we have the number 1 class coming in, and it'll just be fair for everyone else, right?
Yeah, they can sign them, and then they'll just hit the transfer portal with the real kings.
Hey, we're doing good on transfer portal. I told you that. Everyone seems to just be taking leftovers. I mean, even Michigan basketball seems to be taking leftovers. But for Michigan football, they're taking guys that are graduating and that are actual contributors or whatever.
Oh, so they're turning into BYU. They're graduating. They're working other jobs.
Hey, you say that, but one of Michigan's like top tight end recruits, I think it was, he's like a 4 or 5 star. They were like, this guy's going to be a monster because he's going on his Mormon mission. And I was like, Mormon mission? Like, do they even have those guys at Michigan? By the time he gets there, he'll be like 26, dude. He'll be gigantic, muscular, hopefully. He'll just be like...
he'll have 8 kids.
Like Tony Gonzalez out there running around. That's what I want. I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be awesome, right? So, that's my last thought. So thanks for listening. Checking in on some other football stuff. Maybe some more post breakdown. Hopefully I get the audio fixed for next week. Like I said, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.